I have to confess something. I had a moment last week where I almost lost my mind trying to explain a spreadsheet to a colleague. I
Uh-oh.
mean, I was explaining it clearly. I was using small words. I was pointing at the screen. And I look over, and their eyes are just glazed over.
A glaze. I know the
It
glaze.
was like talking to a statue. You ever have that?
Yeah.
Where you're hitting a brick wall and you just want to shake them and say, why aren't you getting this?
Oh, absolutely. It's the universal frustration of anyone who knows something trying to transfer that knowledge to someone who doesn't. And usually when that happens, what did you do? Did you just say the same thing again, but louder?
I definitely said it louder and slower. Like, click, dot, the dot cell.
And how'd that work out?
It didn't work.
It rarely does, and that's because you were focused entirely on your transmission, how you were sending the signal. But today, we are going to flip that completely.
Okay.
We're doing a deep dive into how learning works. 7 research-based principles for smart teaching by Susan A. Ambrose and her colleagues.
And before you, tune out because you aren't a teacher, let me stop you.
Okay.
Because this isn't really about classrooms.
Not at all.
I mean, it is, but it's actually an operating manual for the human brain.
Yeah.
Whether you're training a new hire, raising a kid, or just trying to learn Spanish on the weekends, this is the code for how stuff actually sticks in our heads.
Exactly. This book is a bridge. It takes all this dense cognitive science research, decades of it, and boils it down into 7 principles that explain why your colleague stared at you blankly.
Right.
It explains the mechanics of the aha moment.
And what I love is that it moves us away from that vague advice like, just be engaging. This is like engineering. It's looking at the brain as a system. So let's crack this open.
Let's do it.
The authors start with a principle that I think is going to hurt some feelings. It basically says your students or your team are not empty USB drives waiting to be filled.
Right. This is the myth of the empty vessel. Principle number 1 is, students' prior knowledge can help or hinder learning. The assumption we usually make is that when we start teaching, we are writing on a blank slate.
Which would be easier, honestly. If they knew nothing, I could just tell them the truth and we'd be done.
It would be so much easier. But nobody enters a room with a blank mind. Everyone comes in with a messy attic full of previous experiences, half-remembered facts, and, folk wisdom about how the world works.
Right.
And here is the kicker. Sometimes that stuff in the attic is wrong. And if it's wrong, it doesn't just sit there. It actively fights the new information.
So it's not just a lack of knowledge, it's the presence of wrong knowledge that's the problem.
Precisely. In cognitive science, we call these misconceptions. And the brain is stubborn. It prefers its old, comfortable, albeit wrong model over your new, complex one. The book uses a physics example that I love. Most people intuitively believe that a heavy rock falls faster than a light rock. It just feels true.
I mean, yeah, if you drop a boulder and a pebble on my foot, I know which one I'm worried about.
Exactly. So if a physics teacher stands up and says, actually, gravity accelerates all objects at the same rate, the student might nod and write it down to pass the test.
Sure.
But deep down, they don't believe it. Their prior model rejects it. So the moment they walk out of the class, they revert to the heavy things fall faster logic.
So if I'm trying to teach someone a new software process, and they use the old system for 10 years.
They are viewing everything you say through the lens of the old system. If you don't acknowledge that, if you don't bring those misconceptions out into the light and dismantle them first,
you're just wasting your breath.
You're just painting over wallpaper. It's going to peel right off.
That explains so much. You literally have to do demolition work before you can build. You have to ask, what do you think happens when you click this button and let them be wrong first?
Yes. You have to activate their prior knowledge to correct it. Otherwise, you're just talking to yourself.
Okay, so let's say we've done the demo work. The site is clear. Now we need to start bringing in the new information. But this is where I feel like I usually fail. I dump a bunch of facts on people and hope they catch them.
Which leads us perfectly to principle 2. How students organize knowledge affects learning. This is the difference between having a messy desk and a filing cabinet.
I feel like my brain is definitely the messy desk.
Well, let's use a bigger analogy. Imagine a warehouse. A novice, a beginner, throws everything they learn into a pile in the middle of the room.
Okay.
They have the facts, they know the dates, the formulas, the button clicks, but it's just a pile. If you ask them a question, they have to rummage through the pile to find the answer.
And they probably can't see how one box relates to another. They're just isolated boxes.
Now look at an expert's warehouse. It has aisles, it has shelves, it has a labeling system.
I see where this is going.
When an expert learns a new fact, they don't just throw it on the floor. They instantly know, oh, this is a piece of 19th century economic theory. It goes on aisle 4, shelf B, right next to the Industrial Revolution.
Because they have a structure, a web of connections.
Webs of meaning, the authors call it. And this is crucial because the way knowledge is organized determines how easily you can retrieve it. Experts can retrieve information instantly because they know where it lives in the structure.
Right.
Beginners get stuck because they are drowning in data without structure.
So if I'm the expert trying to teach the beginner, my job isn't just to hand them boxes.
Yeah.
My job is to build the shelves.
That's the aha moment. You have to explicitly teach the structure. You can't just say, here are 10 facts. You have to say, here is the timeline, or here is the causal map, and show how the facts connect. You have to give them the skeleton, not just the meat.
I like that, to just give them the puzzle pieces, show them the picture on the box.
Exactly. Without the picture on the box, they're just jamming pieces together that don't fit.
Okay, so we've cleared the misconceptions, principle 1, and we've built the shelves for them to store the info, principle 2. But here is the reality check. I can do all that, and the person still might just not do it because they don't care.
Ah, yes. The
Yeah.
engine of the car. Principle 3. Motivation determines, directs, and sustains learning.
I feel like motivation is a word we throw around to mean energy or enthusiasm, but the book gets, like, almost mathematical about it.
It does. It moves beyond the rah-rah speech. The authors propose that motivation is essentially an interaction of two main variables, value and expectancy.
Okay.
Think of it almost like an equation. Motivation, value times expectancy.
Okay, let's break that down. Value is easy. Do I care about this?
Right. Is this important to me? Will this help me get a raise? Is this interesting? If the answer is no, the value is 0. And what happens when you multiply by 0?
You get 0. No motivation.
Yeah, exactly. But here is the trap. Let's say the value is high. I really want to learn to code because I want a new job. But my expectancy is 0.
What's expectancy again?
Expectancy means, do I believe I am capable of succeeding at this?
Oh, wow. So if I look at Python code and think, I'm just not smart enough for this, or I'm too old to learn this, it doesn't matter how much I want the job. The motivation tanks.
Precisely. If you believe failure is inevitable, your brain won't invest the energy. Why would it? It's a waste of calories.
So as a leader or a teacher, if I'm seeing low motivation, I need to diagnose which variable is broken.
Is it that they don't see the point?
The value?
Or is it that they don't think they can do it? The expectancy.
Yes. And there's actually a third hidden variable the book mentions, the environment. Is the climate supportive?
This is the toxic boss factor.
It is. If I value the work and I think I can do it, but I know that if I make one mistake, you're going to yell at me, my motivation shifts from learning to survival.
Oh, yeah.
I stop taking risks. I stop exploring. I just keep my head down.
So to get that engine running, show them why it matters, convince them they can do it, and make it safe to fail along the way.
That is the recipe. It sounds simple, but I think we usually skip the convince them they can do it part. We just say, this is your job, do it.
And then we wonder why they procrastinate. Procrastination is often just a defense mechanism against low expectancy.
That hits a little close to home. Okay, let's keep moving. Principle 4. We've got the engine running. We are learning skills. But there is a difference between knowing a skill and actually mastering it.
A huge difference. Principle 4 is, to develop mastery, students must acquire component skills, practice integrating them, and know when to apply them.
It's that last part, know when to apply them. That feels like the tricky part.
It is the most common failure point. Think about it like learning to drive. First, you learn the component skills, how to steer, how to brake, how to check mirrors.
Right, got it.
Then you practice integration, steering while braking, while checking mirrors. That's hard, but you get there. But then you have to know when to apply specific maneuvers. If you know how to parallel park perfectly, but you try to do it in the middle of a highway, you haven't mastered driving.
That's a terrifying image.
Yeah.
But I see this in work all the time. You teach someone a specific tool or a script, and they use it perfectly, but in the completely wrong situation.
Exactly. We see this with students who memorize a formula. They can solve the equation if you hand it to them. But if you give them a word problem, a real-world messy scenario, and ask, which formula do you use, they freeze.
They have the tool, but they don't know the context.
So mastery isn't just, I know how to use the hammer. It's, I know when to pick up the hammer versus the screwdriver.
And the only way to teach that is to expose them to those messy, real-world contexts. You can't just teach the clean version in the textbook.
You have to give them the messy version and say, what now?
I feel like that transitions perfectly into the next principle. Because if they are practicing in these messy scenarios, they're going to mess up.
They have to.
And that means they need feedback. Which brings us to principle 5.
Yes. Goal-directed practice with targeted feedback enhances learning.
Now, I read this section, and I have to admit I felt a little attacked, because the book basically implies that my go-to feedback, good job, or nice work, is garbage.
Garbage might be strong, but
Yeah.
it's certainly calorically empty.
But wait, hang on. If I stop telling my team good job, aren't they going to think I'm a cold robot? Doesn't everyone need encouragement?
There is a vital distinction here between encouragement and feedback. Encouragement, you can do this, boosts motivation. That expectancy variable we talked about.
Right.
That's fine. But it is not feedback.
Okay, so what makes it bad feedback?
Because it targets the ego, not the task. When you say good job, the learner thinks, I am good. When you say bad job, they think, I am stupid. It becomes about their identity. Effective feedback needs to be about the work itself, and it needs to be specific enough to be actionable.
So instead of good job, what should I be saying?
You should say, the way you organize the data in the second chart makes the trend very clear.
Okay, I see that. It tells them exactly what to replicate next time.
Right. And on the negative side, instead of, this report is weak, which is demoralizing and vague, you say, the conclusion doesn't match the data in section 3.
It's like a GPS instruction. Turn left is helpful. You're driving badly is just annoying.
Exactly. Feedback is a guidance system.
Yeah.
If the GPS just said you're lost every 5 minutes, you'd throw it out the window. It needs to tell you the correction.
Right.
The book emphasizes that feedback needs to be frequent, timely, and specific to the goal.
Timely is a big one for me. If I wait until the annual review to tell you that you messed up a project in February, that's not learning. That's just an ambush.
It's an ambush, and the cognitive connection is gone. The brain has already archived that file. You need to catch it while the cement is wet.
Okay, so we need specific, timely feedback that focuses on the task, not the person. Speaking of the person, though, Principle 6 reminds us that we are dealing with actual human beings here.
Yes. Principle 6, students' developmental stage influences learning.
Now, the book focuses on college students, noting that they're going through this massive identity crisis while trying to learn calculus. But honestly, thinking back to when I was 20, I don't know how I learned anything.
Right.
I was mostly worried about why my crush didn't text me back.
And that's the reality. The brain doesn't have separate batteries for emotional drama and learning algebra. It's all drawing from the same power source. If a student or an employee is going through a divorce or struggling with their identity or feels socially isolated, their cognitive bandwidth is compromised.
It's easy to forget that.
Yeah.
Especially in a corporate setting.
Yeah.
We treat people like brains in jars. Here's the data, process it.
Right.
But if the jar is freaking out about rent or his sick kid, the processing slows down.
It does. And the authors argue that you can't ignore that climate. You have to recognize that intellectual development and social and emotional development are happening simultaneously. They interact.
So we have to be a little bit more human. We have to create a space where the emotional load isn't so heavy that it crushes the learning.
Exactly. A stressed brain does not learn. It survives, but it doesn't learn deep concepts.
Which brings us to the final principle. And this feels like the end game. If we do all this right, we clear the misconceptions, we organize the info, we motivate them, we give great feedback, what are we actually trying to create?
We are trying to create a self-directed learner. Principle 7. To become self-directed learners, students must learn to monitor and adjust their approach.
The book uses a fancy word here, metacognition.
Yes, metacognition. Thinking about thinking.
Which sounds very philosophical, but it's actually really practical. It's the difference between being a passenger in the car and being the driver.
That's the perfect analogy. Most students, and frankly many employees, are passengers. They sit there and wait for you to tell them where to go, how fast to drive, and when to turn.
Right.
If they get lost, they just sit there and wait for you to fix it.
Hey, boss, what do I do next?
Exactly. But a self-directed learner is driving, they have the map, they are constantly checking, am I on track? This approach isn't working, I need to shift gears, I need to look up a tutorial. They are monitoring their own understanding.
And the scary part is, we assume people know how to do this.
Yeah.
We assume that by the time you're an adult, you know how to learn. But the book says, nope.
No, it's a specific skill set that has to be taught. We have to teach people to plan, monitor, and evaluate.
So how do we do that? How do I make my team more metacognitive.
You stop giving them all the answers. Instead of just correcting their work, you ask reflection questions. What worked well in this project? What would you do differently next time? How did you know you were going off track?
You force them to look at the process, not just the product.
You force them to check their own dashboard. Over time, they start asking themselves those questions without you, and that is when they become independent.
That's the dream, right? To make yourself obsolete as a teacher or manager.
That is the ultimate goal.
So let's zoom out. We've got 7 principles: prior knowledge, organization, motivation, mastery, practice and feedback, developmental stage, and self-regulation. When you look at them all together, it really changes the question from how do I teach this to how do they learn this?
That is the shift. It stops being about your performance on stage and starts being about their processing in the audience. You stop fighting against the way the brain works and start designing for it.
I love that. So here is my challenge to everyone listening. Think about a time recently where you struggled to learn something, or you struggled to get a point across to someone else. Don't just blame the explanation. Look at these 7 levers.
Right. Ask yourself, was the motivation equation broken? Was there a misconception blocking the road? Was the feedback too vague?
Usually it's not a mystery. It's just a missing principle.
It almost always is.
This has been a fascinating look under the hood of the brain. Thanks for helping us unpack it.
Always a pleasure. Keep learning.
We'll see you in the next deep dive.